are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For today's episode, I had the honor to interview Tess Scott. Tess is the author of Listen, Sister, Finding Hope in the Freakshow of Life, which is a rather humorous work of Christian literature. I'm here with Tess Scott, the author of Listen, Sister, Finding Hope in the Freakshow of Life. Tess, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Aaron, thanks for having me on.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Okay, my name's Tess Scott, obviously. I live in Sarnia, Ontario, that's in Canada, just across the river from Port Huron, Michigan. So close to the United States, but not quite there. And I'm a wife, a mom of 8 boys, big family. I love to speak to women, encourage them. I'm kind of an encourager of women, and I wrote a book. And so that's kind of my life now these days. It's pretty fun. There's lots of shenanigans happening.
Without spoiling too much of your book, what is Listen, Sister, Finding Hope in the Freakshow of Life about?
So the book is all really short stories. So everyone is only maybe 2 or 3 minutes long about something that happened. It's all embarrassingly true stories of raising the 8 boys, or living on a farm, or having breast cancer, being divorced and married again to the same guy. All those kinds of things, but really funny stories of things that just happened in ordinary life, what I learned from that story. And that's what the whole book is about. So it's not in any particular order. It's not like a biography, but it's more like giving hope to other people to say, you know what, my kids also peed in the Lego, and that's okay. We make it through these silly, stupid little things that happen.
Now, although your book is more comedic than a typical Christian book, how does religion and your Christian faith shape your book?
Well, that's the hope. You know, the hope is that even though today might not look like I thought it would look, that God's going to get me through that. That God promises to give me hope and joy and wisdom and all those things, and He always does. He always comes through. He's always been faithful. So I need to remember, and I want to encourage other people, not just women, but it's written really for women, but to encourage other people that to look back at what God's already done in your life, and how He got you this far, and He's going to get you further. So, and even learning from other people, like learning from me and the things that I've experienced, things I learned from other people, and how God has brought us through that. So I don't think I could have made it through one day. I mean, there was the book is funny, but there was some really hard times that God brought me through, and I wouldn't have made it through had I not had my faith.
Yeah, keep in mind, a lot of people will associate Christian literature or religious literature of any kind as being kind of stiff or formulaic. Yours is kind of breaks that mold.
Okay. I was wondering what you were going to say there for a second.
I got tripped up on my own words.
Yours, Tess, is kind of whacked. Yeah. No, well, because my faith is personal. It's about a relationship that I have with God. It's not about a book or a set of rules. It's not a religion. It's about relationship. So that's how I wrote it, because that's my life. That's how I make it through every day. It's not about a set of rules or a way I have to perform. It's just about God's grace to me. It's about God wanting to be in relationship with Tess, in relationship with Aaron, and with everybody, and having that personal one-on-one and making it through. So that's what it's about. I've never experienced it as a religion, in that it's like you said, like stoic or a set of rules or that kind of thing.
Now, is your book self-published or traditionally published?
My book is traditionally published by Morgan James Publishers, which is a publisher in New York, so in your country. And they were absolutely great to work with. Really, really great. I'm thankful because this is my first book, so I needed lots of help. I can say that for sure.
Now, what is your typical writing routine if you have one?
Yeah, so well, when I got the book contract, so I quit work. Like I knew that I was supposed to share my story, whatever that was going to look like, and I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. But once I got the book contract, I still had half a book to write. So I still had another 50 stories to write in a couple months. So I did, at that time, I had a pretty good routine, and I'm good if I have a routine, I can stick to it. So, I would go outside at 9 o'clock every morning and I would write till 12, like sitting at my patio in the sun. That's my happy spot. And I would do that every day. Before that, when I was just working on kind of the ideas of the book and not knowing if it would get published, I was working full time. And then I came home at the end of my day, which I would be home by 3 o'clock, and then I would write till 5 every day. And I'm just someone who is just like that. I'm very regimented. I mean, I can do it. I'll tell myself I'm doing that from 3 to 5 every day, 5 days a week. And then if I mess up a couple days and don't do it, then I'm in deep weeds because, I have to do it at the same time. So I had to learn to give myself some grace in that too, that if it didn't work out, you can always jump back on and do it.
Now, do you plan on writing more books in the future?
Yeah, I'm working on another book. I think I always say in jest that it's going to be called Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, because every time I am on a podcast or I'm talking to somebody about something, like for instance, I was on a podcast about step parenting, and I was talking about the importance of having a good relationship with your ex or with your husband's ex-wife and all those exes in life, because we share children. So that person's always going to be in our life, so we need to have good relationships for the sake of the kids, for the sake of ourselves, to grow and forgiveness and all of those things we talked about in that podcast. And then that week, my husband's ex-wife called me and said she's going to start coming to our church, and she's sitting with me, and which is great. Just so funny though that happened right after I went on the air and spoke about how important this was. And I mean, I told her how funny it was too. There's no secrets there, but I think sometimes when we speak publicly about something, then it turns around and then, wow, you put your money where your mouth is. So I think that'll probably be the title of the next book.
Now, as someone who has gone through divorce, what is the best advice you could give to someone who is in a failing marriage?
Oh, hold on. That's what I think. I mean, aside from an abusive situation, I would never say hold on. But honestly, I think if we could have just tread water, for a little while, it would have turned around. I think that perhaps going in, I thought that everything in marriage was supposed to be perfect, like a TV show, or the expectations were too high. But there's going to be days that you're not even going to like each other, and there's going to be rough days, and that's okay, but just hold on. You can make it through. That's my advice.
Now, in your opinion, how are women in 2022 different than women around the time I was born in like 1990?
Well, I think that it's more difficult right now, not just women, but for all of us, women and men, because I think around, if I think back to when I was a young mom, so around that 80s and 90s, because I was mom lots of times, obviously, but I think that I connected with my friends, live, like in person, or I called them up on my phone. I heard that their life, I could hear their kids screaming in the background, so I knew that this friend, her life is also not perfect, just like my life, not perfect. So that was my expectation. But now I see a lot of young girls, my daughter-in-laws, and young women who are, and men who are connecting with each other on social, mostly on social. And I think if you're looking at Instagram at that big, beautiful house, with the wreath on the door and the pumpkin on the porch, and you see that person's life, and you think that person has this perfect life, and I don't, you can become really discontent. But the truth is, that's not really that person's life. They're not showing you their real life. And if you walked into her house unannounced and you went into her living room, there's probably a load of laundry on her couch, just like your house. People don't share on social the truth, like their dirty stuff, their dirty laundry, that, they're not vulnerable. We're not honest. They show the best of the best, but they don't show all of it. And that's okay. We don't necessarily all want to see the worst of everybody, but it's good to remember that that's not all there is.
And you make a very valid point about social media, in particular Instagram, where I look at various people's Instagram. Of course, I use Instagram, and a lot of people use Instagram. Their lives look too perfect.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and I think that we need to be honest with each other, and maybe not, putting it all out there for the whole world to see, but it's important to have a group of friends, like a close group, where you can be 100% honest with them and 100% vulnerable, and encourage each other and say, this is where I'm really struggling. I'm struggling with my thinking. I think whatever it is, or this is what I'm worried about, or and then our friends know what to watch for. They know where we're at, and they can share truth. And that's the most important thing that I think that I say, is to fill your head with what's true. So it's important to have that close circle of friends that you're doing life with.
Well, Tess, that was the final question I had, so I thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Aaron. What a fun time.
I'll conclude this episode by providing a personal update about myself. For the last couple of years, I had been wearing a pair of eyeglasses that were too strong for my eyes and had a frame that was extremely tight to my face. Yesterday, after I recorded the interview with Tess, I picked up a new pair of eyeglasses that I ordered after an eye doctor appointment a couple of weeks ago. And for the first time in my life, I have a pair of eyeglasses that are completely comfortable to wear. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at authoraac, and on Instagram at aacscribe. Copyright 2022, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.